And if this Holy Spirit energy is not God, then it must belong to the other set, the creation set, right?
Well, no, it's not created. It belongs to God.
Yet it is not God?
Right.
But, my friend, how can this energy not be God, and not be created either? We agreed that all things in existence fall either into the God category, or into the non-God category, but not into both, and since a thing that exists cannot be non-existent, it cannot be neither in the God category nor in the creation category, right?
Well, I think so.
Come now, my friend, focus. A thing that exists must be in either the God category, or in the non-God category, but not in both, right?
Right. Yes, we agreed on that.
Likewise, the antithesis must also be true, that an existing thing must exist, and not be non-existent, therefore an existing thing could not be excluded from both sets, otherwise it would be non-existent. Right?
Right, I got it now.
So, either this energy that God uses to accomplish His will is in the God set, or in the creation set, correct?
Yes, it seems so.
So then, which set does this energy fall into?
I'm not sure. You have confused me.
My aim is to clear up any confusion, therefore your confusion is all your own, and not of my doing. Focus. It seems obvious by now that either the Holy Spirit is God or a creation. Which of the two sets do you believe it belongs to?
Well, since the Holy Spirit is not God, it must be a creation.
Let's assume you are correct, and follow your reasoning, or rather the Watchtower's reasoning, to its logical conclusion. Let me ask you this, is God's impersonal active force a part of God or separate from Him?
It's a part of God.
But we agreed that God is completely God, in all His parts, and that no part of God is not God, didn't we so agree?
Yes, we did.
But now, my dear friend, you are contradicting yourself by claiming that this impersonal active force of God is a part of God, yet not God. Are you saying that there is a part of God that is not God?
No, I'm not saying that. What I mean is, well, I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can help you clarify your reasoning. First, you agreed that there is no part of God that is not God. Then you claimed that God's active force is a part of God yet not God, which would mean that there is a part of God that is not God. You must now clarify your reasoning by coming to a logical decision. Is any part of God not God, or is every part of God truly God?
Well, God is God in all His parts. Yes, that is correct.
So, do you now reject the idea that there is a part of God that is not God?
Yes, I reject that.
So, you reject the idea that the Holy Spirit is not God?
No, I don't. Rather, I reject the idea that God's impersonal active force is a part of God.
Are you saying, then, that God's active force is not God's?
No, it is God's, just not a part of Him.
Do you mean that this active force belongs to God, but it is separate from God?
Right, that's what I mean, because that would make my belief true.
I doubt it. Since God's active force is not a part of God, but separate from God, then it is a creation of God, right? After all, what is not God is a creation of God. Remember our two sets?
Right. There can only be two sets. One set is for all things that are God, which can be only God and no one else, since there is only one God, Jehovah, and the other set which includes all things created by God.
Which would put this impersonal active force into which set, God or creation?
The creation set.
So, do you agree that the Holy Spirit, which you call God's impersonal active force, or the energy which God uses to accomplish His will, is a creation of God?
Yes, I agree with that.
Now, since we agreed that God's impersonal active force is a creation, and therefore not a part of God, is it not reasonable to assume that God must have created this impersonal active force? After all, it is a creation, right?
That doesn't seem right. God used this active force to create the universe, but He couldn't have created the active force.
Why not? You stated that this active force is not God, therefore it is a creation of God. And if it is a creation of God, then God must have created it. And, according to your reasoning, if God used this active force to create all things, then He must have needed to first create the active force, in order to have an active force to cause creation.
Well, I'm not sure. I feel that we are moving around in circles.
Then, my friend, we have run into another wall, which we cannot get around. If God needs the active force to accomplish his will, and if he used this active force to cause creation, and if he then had to create this active force, in order to have an active force to cause creation, then there was a moment when God did not have this active force, because he had not created it yet.
That sounds crazy.
There was a moment when God's impersonal active force did not exist, which would mean what?
I don't know. What?
It would mean that there was a moment when God possessed no energy to accomplish his will, no power. This would mean what?
This is absurd.
Answer the question.
Well, it would mean that God was powerless. That makes no sense.
And, is a God without power a God at all?
No, certainly not. This doesn't make sense.
On the contrary, my friend. It makes perfect sense, according to your reasoning, or more correctly, the Watchtower reasoning.
Well, this is not true.
If this conclusion is false, then one or more of our premises is false. Let's now reason backwards instead of forward, as we have done. Let's now assume that God has always been God, shall we?
Shall. Yes. That is true. God has always been God.